This week on the Compliance Tip of the Day, we're going to look at the ubiquitous term of fraud, waste, and abuse and explain why it's important for a compliance professional. The Compliance Tip of the Day. This is the podcast where we bring you daily insights and practical advice on navigating the ever-evolving landscape of compliance requirements. Whether you're a seasoned compliance professional or just starting your journey, my aim in this podcast is to provide you with a bite-sized, actionable tip to help you stay on top of your compliance game. And now I'd like to say a few words about the latest podcast on the Compliance Podcast Network, AI Today in 5 with 5. Thrilled to announce the inaugural episode of my latest podcast series, AI Today in 5. I wanted to do a short, curated set of stories and news stories about AI for the compliance professional and the greater business professional. You can check it out on Megaphone, the Compliance Podcast Network, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or Apple, or wherever great podcasts are listened to. Check out AI Today in 5. In this part 1, we consider the definition of fraud, waste, and abuse and explain why this term is so important in the private sector in addition to the governmental sector. So what is fraud, waste, and abuse, and why is it so important for a compliance professional? Well, it's certainly one of the most ubiquitous phrases, and in the government sector, it's a triad which is well defined. Federal and state agencies spend billions of dollars each year tracking, auditing, and enforcing rules to combat it. But in the private sector, the phrase is no less relevant. Whether you're managing a global compliance program, overseeing internal controls, or leading an ethics initiative, fraud, waste, and abuse can quietly erode corporate value, undermine trust, and invite unwanted scrutiny from regulators, auditors, and stakeholders. Yet too many compliance professionals lump these terms together, failing to appreciate the important differences between them. Fraud, waste, and abuse may sometimes overlap in practice, but they require distinct prevention and detection strategies, tailored controls, and cultural messaging. So what is fraud? Fraud is the most familiar of the three. It is an intentional deception or misrepresentation made with the knowledge that it will result in an unauthorized benefit. In the corporate world, fraud is not limited to elaborate Ponzi schemes or headline-grabbing accounting scandals. It often hides in plain sight. Waste. Waste is the silent erosion of value. It's rarely, if ever, intentional. It refers to careless or unnecessary use of resources, leading to inefficiency and loss of value. Waste does not always involve dishonesty. Usually it is more of a byproduct of poor management, weak oversight, or cultural indifference. And finally, abuse. Abuse sits somewhere between fraud and waste. It involves improper or excessive resources or authority without clear intent to defraud. Abuse may not violate the letter of a company policy, but it often violates the spirit. Abuse thrives in cultures of entitlement and weak oversight. It often signals to employees that procurement rules are flexible or merely suggestions, and undermines trust in leadership. Regulators may not prosecute abuse, but investors, boards, and employees will notice. So what are the three key takeaways for the compliance professional around fraud, waste, and abuse? Number 1, know the difference. Fraud, waste, and abuse require distinct approaches, and treating them as interchangeable dulls your controls. 2, remember that fraud is only one threat. Waste and abuse, while less visible, can be just as damaging to shareholders and boards who care about stewardship as much as compliance. And 3, recognize that the culture is the battleground for abuse. Without accountability and transparency embedded in daily operations, policies, and procedures, you're powerless against entitlement and favoritism. I hope you will stay with us for the entire week, where we explore how you can use a best practices compliance program to help fight fraud, waste, and abuse. And we take a deep dive into waste and abuse and explain what they are and some specific strategies to combat those terrors. Things that I'm happy to do for you, the compliance profession, is if you have a question or a series of questions you would like some compliance tips on, I'm happy to take any requests that you might want, certainly anonymize them, and give you a quick tip, either one quick tip or maybe a week's worth of quick tips. So if you have any tips you want about your compliance program, you can shoot me an email at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. This podcast was created and produced